yourself. If that is what you want, he's like, you should always get a job that feels like it's a reach, because that's going to bring you up to a new level of doing things you haven't done before.
What's good, y'all? Welcome back to another episode. This is Educational Pathway. We have this amazing individual to the side of us. So without taking her thunder, let's have her introduce herself.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Caroline Smith, and I am the Redwood Camp Director here at Mount Hermon.
Definitely, Redwood Camp Director. That's
Yes.
a big title. How did you get to this position?
Totally. Yeah. So I've been in my role for almost 2 years now. And I feel like it is so funny because I feel like this was like my dream job growing up. And I feel like I just kind of took like a bunch of little steps that kept leading to the next and next one, but in kind of a flyover. I always really loved camp in college and growing up. I like worked at camps in college, and I feel like I just kept kind of taking next step by step. I did after college, I worked here at summer camp. After college, I did the Mount Hermon internship, which is like a 1 to 2 year thing. I did 2 years of like learning how camp worked and all of that type of stuff. I left camp for a little while. I went and worked in senior living doing activities, which is kind of similar to camp. And then I ended up here. So I feel like I just kind of have always looked for things that even if they weren't being a camp director, that they would like give me experience of some facet of that type of work.
Definitely. You mentioned you've always loved working at a camp, being at a camp. What was your inspiration to, I guess, come back? Because you mentioned you were gone for a little while.
Totally. Yeah, great question. So when I was away, I worked as a senior living activities director, which was so special and fun. I did that for a few years. And I think one reason why I left camp is I think I kind of thought, well, like camp is very like involved. It's this very particular kind of line of work. And I almost wanted to see like go work other kinds of jobs to see if I really wanted to do camp. Like I thought it would be kind of confirming of, do I really want to do camp? So I think that was one of the reasons I left. And I think in that I really learned one, that I really love roles of being kind of like in charge of a program, which that's what I was doing there. And I loved like leading a team and kind of looking at the big picture of the year, still while being really involved in what like the actual programs that were going on. But then I think I did learn too, like, oh, I really did love working with kids. Working with seniors was very special for that time. But I feel like I loved the feeling of kids being able to like run around, and it isn't as kind of stressful in the ways that it might be with older adults. And so I think it just felt like, oh man, I would love to work with kids. I would love to be back in a camp setting. And so I really kind of was looking at different stuff, and the timing just worked out perfectly that my role opened up right around that time.
Definitely, God works in mysterious ways.
Yeah.
And it's just really cool you mentioned that, like working with the seniors and working with the little kids, there's a lot of benefits with each of them, and
totally
with little kids. And obviously us working over the summer, it's just so cool seeing the little ankle biters just running around, just being kids again.
Yeah.
What does a typical day or week look like for you?
Okay, it so depends on the time of year. I like to explain, I feel like our job as kind of like 3 separate seasons. So I'd say season number 1 is like during summer, we are running summer camp. Like summer is happening, campers are here, the staff are here. My job is very like, I'm kind of in it of I'm making sure the staff are good. I'm making sure things at camp are good. I am just kind of around and available and really in it, like training the staff, leading the staff. very hands-on. That's when I am busiest. I'm kind of like MIA. And then there's pre-summertime, which is kind of like the month or the month or two before summer, or if we're ever doing any like weekend groups, kind of like the days leading up to a weekend camp, where it's really like kind of hands-on planning. So we're like building the set, we're going shopping, we're getting the office ready, we're like still in a planning phase, but it's a very like physical, in like a physical sense. I really love that time because I'm like, I come in, I'm wearing like shorts and a t-shirt, I'm painting stuff. And then there's like our office season, which is much more of like, we're doing interviews, we're hiring, we're planning the curriculum we're going to be learning about. We're just doing kind of all of the behind the scenes office stuff, which I also really love. And I think that I don't even necessarily have a favorite one. I think that my favorite thing about the structure and like what we do in the day-to-day is that it always changes. I think that's something I learned from going and working a different job, is it didn't really change. It was always kind of like every month was really a repeat. I love that, like, now we're in the office and I bring my like breakfast or my coffee and I'm all cozy and we're just dreaming and thinking, and then we get like actively planning, and then we're like in it, we're around all these people. But then I love when all the people go home, we get to plan again and think, how can we make it better, and how can we like do more and make a better program.
Definitely. You mentioned that there's always something different, and even though I guess you say the structure, like you have your office, you have your outdoor, you have campsite, camp life, it's always different, even within that.
Yeah,
that's awesome. What are two positives and what are two negatives working in your position?
Totally. I think that I'll start with negatives and then we can go positive. I think that it is just always hard, or like just challenging, or you know, that you're working with so many people. And so I think whether it's with staff or whether it's with campers, whenever there need to be, you know, just like difficult conversations of, when you're hiring or a camper needs to end up going home for some reason. I think that those parts where you really feel for people, and I feel like especially in camp, you really try and make it feel like this is a community, this is like a space where everyone can learn and grow together, but at the same time it's also a job. And so I think when those things have to collide of needing to kind of be on the firmer end in lieu of wanting to make the best space for campers. I think that's tough. And I think that comes with, I guess not any job, but I think a lot of jobs. It's like you want to be able to have everyone and be able to do anything. So yeah, I think that is hard. And then I think that I don't know. I think just like maybe hitting a little bit. And again, I think this comes with like any job, but I feel like when you, especially doing a creative work, we're like really coming up with a lot of content, we're creating, even when you're building, like when you hit a block of like, oh no, like I've been in so many situations where we're building a set and then it's like some big thing falls and you're like, oh, we only have so much time. Now we have to fix this. How are we going to like get around this obstacle, or kind of like hitting a wall creatively of like, oh, we're writing this skit. Oh my gosh, what should we have them do? You know? But then we get around those things. So I think those maybe are kind of on the harder end. But I feel like there's so many more positives that outweigh, kind of like in the same, on like the flip side of like those hard conversations. I feel like some of my biggest like positives or highlights are when I see like the staff that I've like hired and trained and then overseen, like when I just see them like so succeed and like either succeed as an individual or like succeed as a group, or like when I just see them thrive, it's like such a huge highlight. And through that, I'm also seeing like them create, like when I just see them make these special moments for the campers, it's the best. And I see the campers getting to like thrive and grow and experience camp, and I feel like it feels like, wow, all of the work that we put into this is so worth it. It's like kind of coming through all the way. So I think that is like the biggest highlight. But I feel like there's lots of like other just like little pros of like, I love getting to like during the year, like spend more time with other people that work at Mount Herman and spend time with the other interns. And yeah, I feel like I just love like getting to have a job that is flexible, yet like I get to be so connected to other people. I feel like it'd be really hard for me to like work at home all the time. And so I love like the community and getting to be connected to everybody.
Definitely, especially being on this mountain. There's a lot of people.
Yeah.
There's a lot of heads and different people to talk to. And even if you worked with them for a long time, sometimes you don't see them or have that time to talk or interact.
Yeah.
And then you also mentioned finding that balance between work and obviously living over here.
Yeah.
How would you find that balance of keeping that personal life and that work life?
Totally. Yeah. I think it's one of the things that I'm kind of proud of myself for. I honestly think the biggest thing that helped me keep that balance was leaving camp for a little while and going and working like a corporate at my like senior living job. It was like we were one building of many buildings all over the country. I think that was like so huge because kind of like you said, a lot of people, we all live here. We also work here. We're in this like Christian community together. And I feel like it was so good for me to go and get like a normal job. People always say like, I don't know, I feel like I have a normal job, but I think that was really good because I feel like I learned a lot of like, just like when I clocked out for the day, I was completely done and I didn't live there and I wasn't really close with my coworkers, or I was close with some of them, but I feel like we held really like clear boundaries. And so I think that now it's so nice I feel like I'm in so much more of a community type of job. But I think that having that experience gives me like, while I can still be close with people and I can still love my work, I think it really taught me how to be like very protective of my like life, my personal time, because then I can like love my work more.
Be able to have those boundaries.
Totally. Like when I go home at the end of the day, it's like, okay, I'm done with this. I'm now going to really do all these things that are life-giving for me. And I think that it really like will allow me to do this job for a really long time because I feel like then when I come back to work the next day, I'm excited to be here and I'm excited to do my role, and I have other facets of my life that are also blossoming and everything.
Definitely.
Yeah.
That's awesome. With that, you mentioned that there's a lot of different avenues, little different things you can do to when you're working in this position. What are a few steps to get to this position?
Totally. I will say, I'll probably talk for a little while, but I'll say like my two main points. One is I feel like no matter what type of whatever you're doing job wise, like I think that like for me, it was like I couldn't just go and get a camp director job because I needed experience before that. And I think that can feel frustrating of like, well, how am I going to get that experience? I feel like you don't have to exactly do the job you want right away, but I feel like in whatever job that you do get, have like a little chunk of or even like in volunteering, it's like have a little chunk of experience to like whatever you think, if you have like a goal of what you would want to do. For example, when I did the Mount Hermon internship. It was like, okay, that was obviously a lot of experience that was applicable. It was like, okay, I really want to get an internship at a camp. At the time, I didn't know I was going to come back and work here, but I thought that'll help me get into other camps. If I'll have done hiring before, I'll have helped, like plan and run a camp.
Do like a lot behind the scenes.
Totally. And then when I was looking for a next job, I had the opportunity to do my senior living job, which is different. It's like not a camp. It's like not even working with kids. But I was like, okay, I'll be the director of my own department. And so that it's the combination of, I did the internship. I'm not like in charge of anyone, and then also I was the director of my own department, even though it wasn't a camp. When you combine those things, it kind of makes the experience I needed to be a camp director. So I feel like my biggest advice would be, in whatever roles you're getting, even if they don't totally fit what you want to do, like find like what's like a piece of, oh, I'll need to do this, so I'll do this job and that'll apply. I feel like that's my number one thing. But I feel like my number two, if you're specifically looking to work like in a camp setting, I'm a big fan of like work at lots of camps. I've worked at summer staff here at Mount Hermon, and then I also did that Mount Hermon internship. But before that, like I worked at 3 other different camps. Like during the school year when I was in college, like I would work at one camp nearby just as like a host, and I worked at another summer camp, and I worked at another summer camp. So I really appreciate that like diverse camp experience, because I feel like it just helps you understand a broader picture of not just how does this one camp that I love work, but how do all camps work. And I feel like it helps bring in some different perspectives and
that
stuff
diversity.
Like that. Totally. Yeah,
definitely. Asking middle schoolers this to, if they had that question to ask you, what would they ask? And they came up with, at a low point of your career, what was a way that you got out of that low point?
Great question. I think when I first did my job at senior living, I had just left Mount Hermon and I moved to Los Angeles, and I'm not really a city girl. And I just kind of like had fallen into this opportunity of doing my senior living job. I started as an assistant, and then my boss quit like the second day I started. And like, I think I was trying to like make the most of things. So I went to like the director of the place and said, hey, I'd like to apply. And they ended up hiring me. So it was like I had been an assistant for 2 days, and then all of a sudden I was director of activities. And I had never worked with seniors before.
Different change.
Totally. And so that it was very scary. I was so scared. Everyone was so much older than me. All of the other directors. I felt like such a little baby. And I didn't know what I was doing. And I also had never really spent that much time with seniors before. And they were, by my end of my time there, I felt like they were all my best friends. But at first I was feeling so sad. They were getting so old and they couldn't do the things they used to like to do. And it really felt like this huge challenge. And I remember feeling very afraid. And I think, how did I get out of it? Honestly, like I went to therapy, and I feel like that was really nice. I got to like really talk about it and process about it with someone, where I could just be so honest about how kind of like scared I was. But I think the other thing, my boss at the time, his name was Shane, he really encouraged me. I remember one day I went to him just in tears of like, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I really want to do this, and I really think I can be good at this. And he really encouraged me. He said, hey, he told me 2 things. He said, 1, no matter what job you do, it's always going to take you like 6 months to really get it down, at least, if not a year. He's like, it's going to take you 6 months to barely feel normal. So it's okay that you feel like this is normal. It's always going to take a while to adjust to a new job. And I've seen that within my own job. I feel way more comfortable here than I did in that moment. But I feel like it took me a whole year to really get like, oh, this is how my whole year goes, that type of thing. But then the other thing he also told me was he was saying, hey, you should always try to get a job that is too hard for you. Like whenever, especially as you become an adult, like you should never get a job that, or if you want to really grow and push yourself, if that is what you want, he's like, you should always get a job that feels like it's a reach, because that's going to bring you up to a new level of doing things you haven't done before. It's like, if this was really easy for you, you wouldn't be growing, but this is going to force you to grow. And then as you continue to get other roles, like always try and get something that you think, I don't know if I can do this, because then you can rise to the occasion and really grow.
Interesting. That's really cool. I know when it comes to like the teaching aspect, like you mentioned, kids will find that expectation, and when teachers put a high expectation, eventually those students will get to that expectation. If you put them at a low expectation, those kids will reach that low expectation and they won't grow.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that you mentioned that. It's cool.
Yeah.
Well, that's all the questions that we have for today.
Great. Awesome.
Yeah, thank you for answering these questions. Thank you for being on this episode.
Yes, this was so fun. I had a blast.
Definitely. If you guys are interested and want to be a director at camp or just want more information, like BLT, that's her camp name, by the way.
Yes.
What Caroline mentioned, just go check out camps, go talk to people, go try new things. That's all it takes. Thank you guys for watching. PSA, pass a smile, stay safe, always stay awesome, and we'll see you guys next time.